Hey, greetings everybody. It's Pup Twigs here from Orlando, Florida, and as our guest today, we have Ezekiel Wild from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Twig?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm enjoying life here in Orlando, Florida. So
Good.
let's get right into it. Let's first talk about your name, Ezekiel Wild. How did that name come about?
So, Ezekiel has been a nickname of mine that just kind of stuck with me since like being middle school, high school. It was kind of the name of one of my favorite cartoon characters from a, not so popular cartoon. So it just kind of stuck with me. And as far as Wild, um, I wanted to kind of do like a family pet name. So I ended up choosing Wild because it meant a lot to me. I kind of got the name from the song Wild Things from Alicia Cara. And she talks about how, you know, we don't need to live by other people's policies and rules and stuff. We do our own thing and you can find me where the wild things are. And it spoke to me like, you know, as much as Christian people get off going to church, I mean, it was kind of like one of those for me. And I was like, this is it. This is the name. So, since then, me and my pack, we are known as the Wild Pack.
I mean, I've known you for a little bit of time, especially when you were here in Orlando, and Ezekiel Wild fits your persona right there. It's spot on, spot on. So I know today you don't have your pup hood on, but do you have specific colors for Ezekiel Wild, or do you just kind of mix and match every now and then?
So, yes, I do have particular colors that I do tend to gravitate towards. And I'm very methodical in a lot of my thinking. Um, so my two colors that I primarily flag is blue and red. Um, and the purpose of that is first off, I like flagging those colors. So hey, but beyond that, blue is pretty much the end of the rainbow spectrum. I know a lot of people will say, well, it's violet. Scientifically, some people will be like, that's kind of like the borderline between going from the visible light spectrum to ultraviolet. And we're just happen to able to see that beginning transition. So um, in my head, with red being the beginning of the spectrum and blue being towards the end, there's no argument whether, that's part of the next spectrum or not. I feel like it's encompassing of all the other colors in between, you know.
Okay.
Um, so it that's part of my reason of flagging those colors as blue and red. And generally I would have a base of black, with usually just a little bit of white.
Okay. All right. So how long have you been in the pup community now?
Oh wow. So I first started getting into puppy play back when I was in the army. And I was introduced to puppy play by my best friend, who to this day is still my pup. Um, and that was like September 2010. I started off as being his handler. And it's kind of funny because back then, like, I thought, kink and fetishes and stuff, ooh, that's dirty, that's taboo. I
Hmm.
grew up a good Christian boy. Um, and when he introduced me to it, I was like, you know what, this is innocent enough, and I was solely his handler for a good, almost 4 years or so. And then it wasn't until about June of 2014 is when I was like, you know what, I want to branch out more into kink and fetish. By that time, I had gotten out the army. I moved back home to South Florida, um, that has a amazing kink community here. And I
Hmm.
was like, you know what? I think I want to try the pup side of things. And ever since then, I have played the role of both handler and pup, primarily pup. Um, but I will happily go back to, being a handler with other pups, especially at events when there is not a handler and I feel like there is a need for one.
Okay. Yeah.
So since about
Well,
2010.
you've been in a long time. Is there a specific date, which I know sometimes we call it our born date, when you when Pup Ezekiel was born, or you just kind of don't have a date? Not everyone does, I know.
Yes, and I do. Like I said, I tend to be very methodical with this stuff. So yes, my preppy birthday is actually June 7th of 2014, to be exact.
Okay, good, good. So, being in it for such a long time, what has been the easiest and what's been the most difficult part of being a pup?
Oh, that is a very good question. Um, the easiest part of being part of the puppy community, I feel like, is being able to authentically be yourself without judgment.
Mhm.
Um, most puppy events, are usually held not out open in the public. Um, so it makes it easier to, you know, not have to look over your shoulders, watch over your back, and just be you and do what puppies do. Live in the now and enjoy yourself. The hardest thing I can say is dealing with other pups that use puppy play as an excuse to misbehave. Um, because like I said, maybe this is kind of like going back to my handler traits. But to me, puppy play is meant to be fun. It is not meant to be an excuse to misbehave or go from being bratty to a complete jerk.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference. And I don't like confrontation. However, if I happen to notice that somebody is just going overboard, they're not respecting no means no. Um, they're just trying to create confrontation out of nothing. I will step up and I will say something, and I will either try my best to resolve the situation, or in some cases, I have even had them, removed from the establishment just because it's like, no, this is not acceptable. And
Right.
I might have been known to make a bar or two come to a complete stop.
Well, that's good because this should be a welcoming community, and we all see sometimes it's not, but
Right.
everyone needs to be welcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this kind of leads us into the next question. If you could change one part of the community, what would that change be?
you know, Initially I want to say education. Education, education, education. But the reality is that, just from my experience, what I have seen, there is plenty of education. Um, so with that, having been there, with that box being checked off multiple times, honestly, I think I can say as of more recently, the one thing I would really love to see more change in the community is unity. Um,
Mhm.
you know, Once again, having traveled, a fair amount because I love to travel, when I can, and being involved with multiple groups, not just all puppy groups, just, you know, fetish and kink groups.
Yeah.
I've been part of the Las Vegas Boys of Leather. I have known plenty of the South Florida Boys of Leather. Um, I have met puppies from all other places. I have been to, events here and there. And the one thing that I can say that I have personally noticed in the puppy community is that unity is not always there. On the surface, it looks like it, but then when you really start to get involved, you notice the clucks here,
Yeah.
and you know, and some of the things I have seen and experienced is, people not being recognized because they're older, while most of the pups are younger, or you have a straight pup that doesn't really feel welcome because they're straight, and most of the other pups are queer in some manner. And even with that, I have even seen where, a gay person not really being welcome because they weren't queer enough. And it's like, excuse me, what? It's like, I didn't realize there was a bar that you have to meet, of
Right, right.
queerness to be you know, and that is one thing that really irks me. So,
Okay.
unity is my biggest thing that I would love to see. You know, we're all different. We can all get along,
Yeah.
and we all need to be inclusive because you know what? Yeah, once again, on the surface, it might look like there's a lot of pups, but when we're also losing pups every day, whether it's because they exit the community, because they felt like they wasn't welcome to,
Hmm.
you know, let's talk about a big topic, suicide. The
Yeah.
amount of pups I have seen commit suicide just because of the fact that they didn't feel welcome and life was just not hard for them. Come on, guys. As a community, we can do better.
Yep. I totally agree with you on that one. Supported 100%. So kind of switching gears, what kind of hobbies does Ezekiel have in Fort Lauderdale?
Oh Lord, hobbies. Well, I am a puppy, so I have tons of hobbies, type deal. I like going for long walks on the beach, candlelight dinners. Oh, wait. Those are romantic things. So hobbies. Recently, well, I can't even say recently. It's been more like 3 years. I am a huge Destiny fan. So a lot of times during my free times when I'm home by myself, you can find me on, PlayStation playing Destiny 2. Same name, Pup Ezekiel,
There
and
you go.
the people I play with, they know I'm a puppy. I don't hide it. um, but being at home, I mean, it's anything from being crafty, breaking out the sewing machine when I can and just kind of like come up with whatever I can think of, to, building stuff, break out the power tools, um, outside the house, just almost a little bit of anything and everything. My biggest thing is I love being around friends and family, you
Yeah.
know, um, being able to go to the bar, socialize with people, and I'm a very social person. So, being able to do things with other people, I mean, it's a much shorter list of what I don't like. But, between riding motorcycles, playing video games, going to the bar, hanging out with other pups, those are my big ones.
Yeah, I'm social person too. Just call me social butterfly and I'm happy. So,
Yes, absolutely.
so do you have any pets yourself?
Yes, I actually have a German Shepherd mix. I believe he's mixed with Black Lab. Um, but he, when you look at him, he primarily looks German Shepherd. Let's see here. I got him back in 2013. So he was 1 year old then, so he's 11 years old now.
No.
His name is Trooper. He's my absolute love of my life. He's my baby. And he is such a daddy's boy. It's not even funny.
Good.
Um, and it's funny because like when I got him, it took a little bit of time, after I started playing the role of being a puppy myself, but I kind of noticed like a lot of my traits kind of come from him, you know,
Hmm.
and I've I've actually heard this tends to be a very common thing, among pups that have bio pups. Um, and a lot of my traits, come from him and stuff. Like even at home, he gets super excited when he sees me grab my puppy hood because then he thinks it's playtime. So I would grab his toys and I would play with him. And that's something that shortly, let's see, like I got him in 2013, so 2014 is when so about a year after I had him, and I got my own puppy hood and everything else. At first he was kind of like, "Daddy, what are you doing?"
Yeah,
And then when he realized that, oh, we're having fun, we're playing. He ever since then he's just been like, "Oh, you're grabbing your puppy hood? Are we ready to play?"
it's playtime. Well, so Ezekiel, how do you identify as a beta, omega, or alpha?
So I identify as a alpha in a switch. Um,
Hence the
alpha
shirt.
because yes, hence the shirt.
Yep.
So um, and it just so happened to be that this was the first shirt I grabbed out of the dresser drawer today. So it just happened to be coincidental. But alpha because like I said, with my pack, I have my husband. I have Pupcast, Pup Medic, and Pup Ryu. Um, and we're all kind of spread out. Of course, obviously here, my husband lives with me here in Fort Lauderdale. Um, and then Pupcast and Pup Medic, we were all good army buddies back in the day. So Pupcast is my first pup. He's been my pup since 2010, and we've been good friends since then. Um, his husband took him quite a while. It took him a few years, but he decided to become part of the fold just a few years ago. And then Pup Ryu, who's also up in Orlando, he became our pup about 2, 3 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Starting to lose track of time already. Um, so that's our pack. And collectively we are the Wild Pack. I identify as Switch because, like I said, I do, go back to being a handler when a handler is needed, and we don't have one.
Right. Okay. So let's say you could ask the next pup a question that we interview here on Unleashed. What would that question be?
So my question for the next person would be that how did how did you overcome that fear of wanting to be a puppy out for the first time? Because I know that that is something a lot of puppies struggle with.
Mhm.
For me, I know it wasn't really that difficult because I had already been used to playing the handler role and being a handler for other pups when I was out and about. So, you know, my feet were already, nice and wet and everything. But I know for most puppies, they do struggle with that first time coming out. So
Mhm.
how did you get over it? And, you know, what will be your advice to get over that?
Okay, and that is a really good question. So are you ready for your question?
I am. What is
All
my
right. This
pop question?
this came from Pup Starry from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he wanted to know, how do you get into your puppy headspace?
Oh, that is a really good question. And surprisingly, I have really never been asked that for me. I have been asked that question in a general term of how does a pup get into their pup space, but I've never been asked how I do it.
Uh-huh.
Um, so it's hard for me to answer that only because of the sheer fact that I tend to live the lifestyle to some degree 24/7
Okay.
at home, at work, out and about. So that puppy mindset is always there for me. And at work it can be comical because if I hear a squeak or something like that because it's like somebody's ringtone, you know, I'm that person that, oh, I heard squeaky, everybody just laughs. Um, and to the point to where I've had a few coworkers at previous jobs before be like, "Do you know what being a human puppy is?" And I'm like, and I'll get my collar out, my tag out from underneath my shirt, and I'm like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about, and just thinking back. Um, and I mean, even like I kid you not, like even so much as going to McDonald's the other day through drive-through. I heard something and I thought it was like a squeak or something, and I was like, "Oh, I heard squeaky," and the woman working drive-through, she happened to look over and she noticed my collar, and she's like, "Oh," and then she looked at my husband's collar and she's like, "Are y'all puppies?" And we're like, "Yes, we are." And we literally exchanged information because she's like, "I have so many questions for you."
Oh, nice.
um, so like I said, for me, I'm in it to some degree. However, for the few times I go deep into headspace, um, usually it takes a moment for me to like, okay, let's tune out the rest of the world. Let's have a serene moment
Hmm.
and focus on the right here, the right now. Turn off the 102 voices in the back of my head. Um, that are having the conversations. So I have to tell them to be quiet. And, like I said, really, really, really focus on the right here, the right now. Um, and I will admit, even for me to this day, going into the puppy headspace can be a little difficult, because I've been so used to focusing on everything around me from my military experience, being, situational awareness training. So that can be hard for me. But yeah, my biggest thing is taking that moment to, you know, focus and defocus all at the same time.
Okay.
Focus on the here and the now, the event, and then defocus from everyone else. And usually I can do that by myself. Sometimes it requires having another pup there to kind of help get me there.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
you know, um, Pup Skeeter from Orlando that um, he was somebody that really helped me with that because I had such a unique bond with him. And being with him was very calming and relaxing. And being there with him, like I felt like the sky could be falling. And if I was there with him, I would have been oblivious.
Okay.
So
Well, good.
um so yeah, that's my little secret there.
So we're almost to wrap up here, but I kind of want to know what kind of things Ezekiel Wild has done over the years. From you had mentioned Vegas and things like that, and now Fort Lauderdale, and just kind of give me a synopsis of what things you've done over these few years.
Oh, so over these past few years, you know, I, s- you know, I started my handler journey up at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Um, and back in 2010, puppies were not a common thing at all.
Mhm.
Um, I think I might have known my pup and maybe one other pup, and that was really about it. Um, so it started there, and then in 2013, when I finally moved back home to South Florida, um, even at that, again, not that many pups here. Um, I met my part of my puppy family, Howler and Poodle here, at a Leatherworks event. They were in the cage, and I was completely amazed by them. And it started, they become my big brothers in a sense. And I see them every other day. I talk to them every day. And that all started with saying a hello, I think you look amazing. And I really admired, you being a puppy out in the open, and things went from there. Being involved here in the South Florida community, you know, eventually I ended up uh, starting what is now known as the South Florida Kennel Club. I am one of the original founding members, and I was the first president for about a year and a half, and I helped the puppy group get started. Back then, it was known as the South Florida Pups and Handlers, and we moved away from that name to be a little bit more inclusive. After a few years of having the puppy group going here, I ended up moving to Las Vegas because that's just where life took me. And I kind of, tried to help the puppy community there get started. Um, and, I was part of the Las Vegas Boys of Leather, um, you know, which there was a couple of pups, already involved there. So I started to help some of the other groups try to form their own puppy group together because they knew that I had helped the South Florida Kennel Club get started. And I was their first president. So I gave them all my tips and tricks and ideas and stuff. So outside of that, I have, traveled to Palm Springs, West Hollywood, um, Salt Lake City, Barcelona, um, and had the chance to experience how different groups form their, how their groups, function and,
Hmm.
their ideas and stuff. And, Barcelona was, quite an experience because like you know, here in America, Americans tend to be a little, prudish and into everyone else's business. And, out at least, with my experience in Barcelona, it was like nobody cared, you
Yeah.
know. 10 o'clock at night, walking to the local, fetish bar in my puppy gear, I kind of felt like I was almost invincible. Like nobody even like looked my way, to where, here in America, it would have been like,
Oh yeah.
how dare you wear that out in public? And they're, just like, you know,
Uh-huh.
yeah, so it's been quite an experience for me, to, be able to travel, talk to people from different groups and stuff. And, I definitely look forward to being able to travel more and experience more events, more groups, more cities, and, grow in this lifestyle because let me tell you, here it is, it's 2013. This is 13 going on 14 years for me. It is a never ending experience of learning.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I agree.
I love it.
Oh, me too. This has been the best thing I've ever done. So I'm sure they will, but if any pups want to reach out to you, how's the best way of getting a hold of Ezekiel Wild?
You can find me on almost all my different social medias as Pup Ezekiel. Um, that is generally my go-to username from, from Facebook, Instagram, Recon, Pup Space. I'm on all there as Pup Ezekiel. Some platforms I use more than others. So if you do message me on one particular platform, and you just haven't heard from me in a while, I promise I will get back to you eventually. That just might be one of those platforms I don't check as often.
Sure.
But I would definitely say Facebook and Recon are probably my two biggest go-tos.
Okay. All right. So any last words before we get off of this video?
My my last words are going to be woof woof, bark bark, arf arf. And for those that are, looking to get into puppy play and you're struggling to get into the community, just from anxiety or whatever it may be, the best way to do it, just go headfirst into it. So
I agree.
sometimes, taking that bandage off slowly is a lot more painful than to just, oh, okay, it's off.
Yep. Yep.
And that's how I got started in the fetish community. And let me tell you something, I have not regretted it, not one bit.
Good. Good. Well, number one, I want to thank you for reaching out to me, wanting to be on this because it's awesome to have somebody that I actually know and have met and have hung out with to be able to be on this and everything. And I hope it's been as good for you just to get out and talk about yourself. A lot
Oh
of us we
gosh,
love
yes,
talking about ourselves, and this gives a great avenue to do that.
absolutely.
But I want to try to end this with some words of wisdom, we hope, and stuff. But remember, whether you're a pup, a handler, or just an interested observer, the most important thing is always to embrace your unique identity and be true to yourself.
Yes, I
Thank you
cannot
so
agree more.
much. This has been amazing. Next, when you're in Orlando, you better hit me up.
Oh, you know I will.
Now that we're on Facebook, we can talk to each other.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing you again so much.
All right. Talk to you later.